Brothers and sisters, morning to you all. And brothers and sisters watching online, morning to you. Today we are reading 2 Samuel chapter 20. We have Pastor HK sharing. So the title for today is The Wise Woman Who Settled the Internal Dispute. So there was someone who stirred up some dispute in this story. And someone who really want to take the credit and declare and show his strength. Those warriors, some warriors. And some in the story, they would just not want to take their revenge on their personal dispute. At the end, it was a wise man who settled this internal dispute, a civil dispute. It's divided into 4 paragraphs. The story is just one story. And this story is special. As David was king, there was someone he was really angry all the time. So, someone who really he relied on, someone was hiding in the city, and then he just, went and got a hammer and to want to kill the whole city. We couldn't tell the wisdom in him. It's only by a power and anger. I think Joab, his anger was not appeased. He was still angry because he was not the first who led the army this time in this battle. But later on, he caught up with the army and then he took the leadership again. Took the leading role again. We'll tell you the details when we read the whole story. And at the very end, the Lord's inheritance may be preserved, all because of a wise woman. Something that worth us to reflect on us when we mention a woman with all kinds of pictures. What kind of a woman do you think you are? And someone think about a woman, a nagging woman comes to mind. Keeps nagging, keeps talking. And some women will cause troubles all the time. And some women live in argument, continuous argument. But in deep troubles, there was such a woman in this chapter. She was an extraordinary woman, not a typical woman in our mind. And he didn't just take I think her wisdom was being well acknowledged. In distress, in troubles, everyone trusted her. And take her and appointed her as the leader, representative of the whole city. She did not just save the city. She settled the civil war of Israel at the time. Verse 1 to 3 talk about the cause of this civil war. And there happened to be there a rebel whose name was Sheba. It didn't just happen. But he was a Benjamite. Benjamite again. Ever since Saul to the David's generation, Many Benjaminites were not at peace. They really thought that David robbed them of their kingdom. And they thought that David was the murderer of Saul. This kind of saying keeps spreading within the people. Maybe it's the Saul's sons or Saul's grandsons or his servants or his countrymen, his fellow men, or people of other tribes of Benjamin, which we read yesterday. When David left Jerusalem, then someone kept cursing him. So when David returned to Jerusalem, then they declared their loyalty to David. These were Benjamites. And here, this rebel was a Benjamite. His name was Sheba, the son of Bichri. And he blew the trumpet and said, "We have no share in David, nor do we have inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel." So it's an action to divide the whole people. English is cessation. Is to cut off. Hong Kong was in such a situation like 2 years ago during the social, not just 2 years ago, but also like when we were British colony and then now we return to the sovereignty of China. So that kind of thought keeps coming up. Everyone thinks that he is right. I believe that the Benjamites at the time thought the same. So he urged others to come out, to leave the sovereignty, the ruling of David. That's what Sheba was doing. Verse 2, the reaction of the people was, so every man of Israel deserted David. But the men of Judah, from the Judah as far as Jerusalem, remained loyal to their king. So you can tell that the rift continued to grow. 10 tribes in the north, and then the people of Judah who followed David, they were divided. Now David came to his house at Jerusalem, verse 3. So he settled his concubines, put them in seclusion and supported them, but did not go into them. So they were shut up to the day of their death, living in widowhood. It's a sad picture here. I don't want to discuss further on this particular issue. It's a typical way of how people look at women. It's like a beautiful vase for decoration. It's only for decoration. It's like a toy for man. And it's like a dignity for the man. They could not be wise women. And then the king sent order here. They want to settle these the rebels of Sheba. First of all, the king said to Amasa. So Amasa was commander over the people of Judah. He was the commander of Absalom. But now he was commander over the whole Israel. Now you assemble the men of Judah for me within 3 days and be present here yourself and settle this civil war. And then verse 5. But Amasa delayed longer than the set time which David had appointed him. So he was strong, but he was not a planner. He was not a schemer. He was not as good as people thought. So he was not as influential as people thought of him. He was unable to assemble the men of Judah within 3 days. He could not take swift action. Then David said to Abijah, he did not command Joab. Joab was in such situation. He was commander of the army for David, right? But now Amasa was the commander, so he was demoted. And he was demoted further because David commanded Abijah, but not him. Because his younger brother, Abijah, was the leading role in David's action. So everyone followed Abijah. So David said to Abijah, now Sheba, take your Lord's servants and pursue him, lest he find him for himself, fortify cities and escape us. So Joab's men, with the Pelethites, and all the mighty men went out after him, after Abijah, not Joab. So it is the swift, it's like SWAT team. SWAT team. They need to move quickly, swiftly, and settle the dispute, settle this war as soon as possible, and pursue Sheba. Verse 8 is like a turning point here. So Joab met with Amasa here. We didn't know what Joab was thinking before this. It was Abijah who led the SWAT team. So these people were under the governance of Joab. So Joab was in the army, but he didn't say anything. But now they were in the rock of Gibeon, last stone which is in Gibeon. So he faced Amasa. And he said, are you in health, my brother? Verse 9. They truly are brothers. They were cousins. They were cousins. Their mothers were sisters. Amasa's mother was sister to Joab's mother. So he was not on guard. So here and then Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. But here Joab did one thing. His sword fastened in his sheath at his hips. As they were so close to each other, Joab did not have the room to take the sword in his sheath. So Joab was very smart. He wanted to say that the sword was kind of like on the floor. And then he drew close to Amasa and called him my brother. So Amasa was not on guard. And then he just took the sword in his hand. But instead, he struck him with it in the stomach. And his entrails poured out on the ground. Verse 10. That's the ending for Amasa. When Absalom was king, very briefly, there were times that they were fighting in the forest of Ephraim. But Amasa was not even mentioned in that battle. This time, Amasa was sent to pursue Sheba. He was not even able to pursue Sheba. Then he died on the road. So the impression we got was he did not have any achievement. He didn't achieve anything But because he was in the house of David, so he became a well-known figure. Sadly, he was not even in the battle, and then he was killed by his own cousins. So everyone stopped, and all the people stood still. There was one of Joab's men stood near and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, follow Joab." Verse 11. Whoever actually refers to those army under Amasa. Suddenly, Joab was commander again. Abijah moved from the commanding post to not the commander anymore. So Abijah. So this is the line of command. There should be a line of command. So it should be Abijah. Yeah. So who is the first, the second, and the third? Abijah was supposed to be the first. Amasa was the first, and then Abijah pursued him, and then now Joab, took him over. Now the line of command was changed. Now Joab was the first again. It was said by one of the Joab's men. He connected Joab with David again. Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, follow Joab. Verse 11. So this military action to pursue Sheba was taken by Joab. It's like this burden in the heart of Joab was settled, was lifted, because Amasa was died, and then verse 14, and he went through all the tribes of Israel to he referred to verse 13. All the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. So they went on after Joab. They were supposed to follow Joab, Abijah. And the army was supposed to follow Amasa. But now everyone went on after Joab. Verse 14, and he went through all the tribes of Israel. That's Joab went through all the tribes of Israel. So from Benjamin all the way to go up north to pursue him. Went through all other tribes. Went past all the tribes. So it's the border of the most north territory. So Makkah and all the barracks. And then all the tribes of Israel to Abel and Bath-Makrat and all the Berites. So they were gathered together and also went after Sheba. So they gathered together to Joab. It was a vast army. And then Joab and the people after him, they came and besieged Sheba in Abel of Bath-Makrat. And they besieged the city. And they cast up a siege mound against the city. And they battered the wall to throw it down. They want to like ravage the whole city, turn it into a plain. Joab was he was a reserved person. You can tell that he didn't show his inner mind, because how he killed his Amasa, his opponent. He was full of anger. He couldn't understand how David set up Amasa, his opponent, to be a commander of the army. And he was so angry that it was Abijah who led the SWAT team and not him this time. So he was so angry. So when he led the whole army, went through the whole Israel, to the northern tribes, all the way to the Beth Makkah, his heart was still really irritated. He was infuriated. So when he found out where Sheba was, so he decided to throw it down, to throw the whole city down, full of anger. If that city had been completely turned into plain, it was a result of violence. But this time, the result was very different. Starting from verse 16, we have this wise woman. Wise woman cried out from the city. So 16 to 22. Hear, hear. Please say to Joab, come nearby that I may speak with you. So she cried out to Joab, didn't she? She had the right to say here. Here, please say to Joab, come nearby that I may speak with him. Then when he came near to her, the woman said, are you Joab? Joab was the commander of the army. He was not being interrogated. He was not being grilled. He was not being called, was he? But you can tell even Joab respond to her call. First of all, Joab did come near to him. And then he was asked, are you Joab? And he answered, I am. You can see the woman actually dominated the conversation. But she was humble and she was really full of courtesy. Hear the words of your maidservant. And he answered, I am listening. So Joab was still like responding, replying to the conversation. So what did the woman say? So she spoke, saying they used to talk in former times, saying they shall surely seek guidance at Abel. So they would end disputes. She quotes ancient proverbs, idiom, but it's not complete. It's not a full saying. But she recorded, she quoted, as soon as you come to Abel, all disputes shall end. And then there will be a guidance. Don't be impulsive. I add this on. Don't be impulsive. Just talk it through, seek guidance. Then you will be able to end disputes. So this is not strong enough yet. It's not strong enough that I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel. We are loyal to David. That's what she was saying. Do not destroy the whole city for the sake of just one person, Sheba. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. A mother of the city. Why do you seek to destroy a city and a mother? It's a mother of cities. the neighboring villages. And Abel is basically a major city within the neighboring towns or villages. Others were just like small villages. Why do you do that? Why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? Verse 19b. Wow, that sounds so strong, doesn't it? That's the inheritance of the Lord. From the time that Joshua entered into land of Canaan, we drew lot and we received this inheritance, this land. This is the inheritance given to us by the Lord. How would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? So Joab heard it and then he took a step back. So he took a step back. Far be it from me that I should swallow or destroy the inheritance of the Lord. And I would not destroy a mother of city in Israel. Then he said that, but a man from the mountains of Ephraim, Sheba, the son of Bichri by name, has raised his hand against the king, against David. Verse 21. So he was a Benjamite. Remember verse 1, Sheba. And he say a man from the mountains of Ephraim. It's not surprising because the mountains was of Ephraim. Maybe it's just the name of the area. So he was a Benjamite. Now he is with you. He raised his hand against the king, against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city. Suddenly, Joab calmed down and his senses returned to him. He knew that he must focus on the problems. It's only the problems of one person. But his words will affect the whole nation. Then the woman replied, watch, his head will be thrown to you over the wall. If you were this woman, would you be so confident of doing this? Unless she had been well respected in this city. She had network, she had influence, people respected her. That's why she made this promise. It's not an empty promise. She knew that this matter will end as she said. Then the woman in her wisdom went to all the people and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. You can see Joab leading a vast army, really overwhelming, daunting. So it's like in a battle, he saw a city, they want to overthrow it. And to batter and destroy this city. After talking to this wise woman, the whole dispute settled. So Joab blew the trumpet. At verse 1, it was Sheba who blew the trumpet. Verse 1, he blew a trumpet and turned the people's heart. And then verse 22, Joab blew the trumpet. Then the dispute settled. And they withdrew from the city, every man to his tent. So yesterday we made a remark reading this. So, after the battle, Israelites returned to his tent. They were not professional army. They were not professional soldiers. Every time a trumpet is blown, they will go into battle and set up captain of 100, captain of 1,000. Those professional soldiers were those who were around David, or maybe just some regular armies, regular soldiers. But the whole nation was not in the state of war. They did not keep a regular army. After the battle, they returned to their tent. So Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem. Verse 23 to 26, the last paragraph. After restoring his kingdom, he restructured his cabinet. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and Pelethites. Verse 23. But when the SWAT team was sent in this chapter, it was not Benaiah who was over them. It was Joab who led the SWAT. Now, Joab was over all the army of Israel. And then we have verse 24, Adoram was in charge of revenue. He was in charge of revenue. So maybe building palaces or, in charge when we have some major building work, need a lot of laborers. So they need someone to watch, oversees the whole thing. And Jehoshaphat was the recorder. It was the recorder as before. And Shiva was scribe. Shiva was an interesting name. Maybe he was not an Israelite. Most likely he was an Egyptian scribe. And Zadok and Abiathar were still the priests as before. And then there is a chief minister, Ira, the chief minister. This is a very special post, chief minister, under David. How come we have a prime minister, chief minister here? Maybe he is a personal pastor to David. Help to David in his spiritual life. So we have this impression after reading this chapter. David settled the whole nation, the whole Israel. He put everyone in his post, his cabinet. Once again, David ruled over the whole Israel. So this chapter tells us we do need wise women. Otherwise, men, they're enraged all the time. They're so hot-tempered, they're infuriated. And then they have this really evil plan, like how Joab, killed his opponent, his own cousin. It was an evil plan. So, man, they do these things. But this chapter encourages us to be a wise woman. We need to be wise in our saying. And she is well respected. She represents the people in her network. Her words was powerful. So she said that her city was a mother of cities. It's the inheritance of the Lord. Do not destroy a city for the sake of just one person. Do you understand this? Can you hear this? So there is different scopes in a matter. Do not deal with the problems in a large scale. We just need to be accurate and precise in handling problems. May God help us. Men are not to be anger, are not to compare yourself with others, try to take credit, try to stand out, try to take credits. We need to come out of this ungodly situation. For women, we need to tame our tongues so that every of our words will be full of grace of God and will be able to edify others, not to worsen the troubles, not to spread gossip, but to actually solve the problems. May God help us. That's the end of our message today. Let's worship our God.